Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you and welcome to the World Travel Market 2014. This is probably the first event that you are attending, so we are very honored to have you here. My name is Dimitrios Buhalis. I'm Professor of eTourism in Bournemouth University. I'm directing the eTourism Lab. And together with my colleague Richard Lewis from Best Western, we have put together this panel today to talk about distribution of hospitality, the issues that are emerging in terms of partnerships with OTAs, and the issues that they have been emerging in the last few years about price parity and distribution and brand integrity and distribution conditions. We've got a fantastic group of people here on the panel, and I'm going to introduce them very briefly. Then I'll ask Richard to say a few words and introduce the panel and introduce the issues that we are developing. And then I'll ask the panel to have a few words before we open to the discussion. So I've already talked about Richard Lewis, who is Chief Executive of Best Western Hotels. Dorian Harris, who is the founder of Scores, the price parity and meta-search engine. We've got Tom Valentine from Secret Escapes. We've got Wong from Supranational Hotels. We've got Carl Oseberg from Choice Hotels in Norway. Yeah? We've got Jose Cobian from Hotel Tonight, who is based in Spain and Portugal. And we've got Jan Svoboda from the Slovakia Historic Hotels. Please welcome our panel. So with all these issues about hotel distribution, Richard is one of the most experienced people I know in the industry who has been doing that for many, many years. So if you'd like to say a few words, Richard, probably from the podium if you like, it will be nice to introduce the panel and the discussion point.
Good morning. So that we can get an idea who is actually in the room today, who is on the hotel side? Okay, and who's on the distribution side, perhaps on an OTA? Okay, this could be good fun. And how many other people in travel, air? Anybody in their industry? Travel, tour operator, travel agent? Okay, so I'm sure you've all read the piece that we put together for this debate, and I guess that's why you're here. So we are going to stay on subject. And the topic is all about distribution and who actually owns the inventory. So it is the hotels that actually physically own it, or is it the distribution partner, the best partner who can actually fill that room? I know that a lot of OTAs, and it's been already made very clear to me by Tom, that not all OTAs are the same. So I know a lot of OTAs actually say that they own the bedroom, whereas the hotel actually really owns the bedroom. They built it, they own it. However, they do need partners who can fill it. And therefore, there is and should be a very close alignment between those people who can sell the bedrooms and those people who actually own them. However, if you search OTAs versus hotels in Google, you will get a lot of words coming up, such as a strained marriage, so a difficult marriage. Some people will say it's a war, it's a battle. So these are partners that seemingly don't always get on particularly well. One thing's for sure is that a hotel has a lot of refurbishment. When will the OTAs put their hands in their pocket to change the carpet? Probably never. So what value is an OTA or any distribution partner adding to the equation? And are they just stripping out margin and making it more difficult for hoteliers to make a profit and to look after their guest? Or are they really truly adding value to firstly the customer and also to the industry? So many of you know, and I guess, how many people here are from Great Britain? Okay, it looks like the minority. So for those of you who do not live in Great Britain and in the United Kingdom, there has been, since 2010, an investigation by what we have in this country called the Office of Fair Trading that has now become the Competition Markets Authority. So they've changed their name, however, they are the same body, so it's the same people. They have investigated the rate parity issue in our industry in this country. And for many of you in different parts of the world, you'll know that that's the same case in Switzerland, Germany, in the United States, where there was a class action taken by a number of guests against the hotel industry and a large number of OTAs. So something clearly isn't quite right. It shouldn't be this way. Why are so many governments actually investigating our industry? Why is it that they think that we are trying to work in a way that is not in favor of the guest, the consumer? Well, the Office of Fair Trading agreed at the end of a 3-year investigation that hotels could control the headline rate, that they could give that headline rate to the OTAs, and then the OTAs could discount that rate to their closed user group, and that was defined by the Office of Fair Trading as anybody who had previously bought a room from that online travel agency at the headline rate. That person would then be able to be in a closed user group and would then receive the opportunity possibly of a lower rate. Now, there were objections from the hotel industry who said, well, what about us? So the OFT said, yes, you can do the same thing. So after 3 years, the decision was that the commitments given by Booking.com, Expedia, and the Intercontinental Hotel Group should be allowed to control the headline rate, and each party could then discount. So you had a situation that maybe the OTA didn't want to discount. If they could sell at the same rate, why would they want to discount? They would actually be hurting their own profit. Why would the hotels want to discount? Because if they were discounting just to keep up with the OTAs, both people would be discounting, and it would actually be driving the rate down for both parties. So some people may have done that, others may not. But what happened very recently is that, well, actually almost immediately that judgment came out, a tribunal was set up, and there was an appeal against that finding. And the appeal was brought by Skyscanner with the support of Scoosh, and they brought that appeal on 3 grounds. So the first ground related to allegedly binding nature of the decision on third parties. The second ground was related to an alleged failure to take into account relevant considerations which had been made by Skyscanner. And the third ground related to the ultra vires, and if you are not familiar with Latin in law, that means the power beyond their ability. So it was power that they didn't have. So it related to the power that they didn't have and the formal nature, the irrational nature of that decision. And the tribunal actually, in the end, quashed the findings of the Office of Fair Trading, which means we're now back not quite to square one, but the CMA is going to have to reinvestigate the whole situation about rate parity, possibly, but certainly on the judgment made by the tribunal, which upheld Skyscanner's appeal. So what does this mean? Well, I'm delighted to say that we have no better person to try to make sense of this than Dorian. So Dorian, what does this actually mean?
Is this working? Well, it was a very strange outcome, as you suggested. Is it high enough? Is it better? It was a very peculiar outcome. The OFT were found to have acted irrationally in accepting the commitments decision. So they're in a very awkward position now that the investigation has to be reopened. There's possibly a couple of moves, a couple of starting points. They can go back and reopen the entire investigation again. Going back to what's called the Statement of Objections, which was their initial case against the three defendants, Expedia, Booking.com, and Intercontinental Hotels, or they could pick up at the commitment stage and tweak them. So perhaps dropping the requirement to have already made a full price booking. It's in their hands. We can't influence it from that point. We can only get involved at whichever point they decide to resume.
So is the real objection from Skyscanner, Dorian, the fact that these discounted rates were given to closed user groups, which the meta search engines could not actually find, and therefore they could not do the job that they were being asked to do, which is actually to give the consumer, the guest, the best deal possible, which after all is what a meta search says it can do?
That's correct. Skyscanner and all of these meta search, that their entire businesses are premised on transparency. So the thought for them to have to tell their customers that there are better rates, but we can't show them to you, would undermine their business models.
Okay. So, Tom, you were saying that not all OTAs are the same. So what is the value that Secret Escapes actually adds to the hotel industry? And do you have any view on this finding of the OFT and the CMA, the tribunal?
Yeah, so not all OTAs are the same because not all customers are the same. And critically, the same customer is in a different need state at various times. So at Secret Escapes, we view OTAs, or people booking hotel rooms online, on a spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum is what we call retail travel. So this is people that know exactly where and when they want to go. Maybe they're going to a conference, maybe they want to be near a wedding or something like that. And we view that retail travel as where the real meat and the real aggression of OTA versus hotel sits. Because that's the point at which somebody types in your hotel name or types in your hotel's region, and then there's competition for your own traffic, and that all seems a bit combative. Right at the other end of hotel room booking is where Secret Escapes live, and that's discretionary travel. That's persuading people to book a holiday they weren't planning to take. So our killer stat at Secret Escapes is that 9 out of 10 people, when they book with us, say they weren't planning the trip before they got the email. And to that extent, we know that one of the main ways you can do that is by giving a really aggressive discount, so way, way below bar and way, way below nickel and diming over whether it's 10% off bar. And that persuades people to take a trip they weren't planning to take and fills an empty room. So, happy to, take response on this, but I think we're a long, long way away from this. And to my mind, fundamentally, the industry could perhaps be a lot more like other industries, which price very aggressively and very dynamically based on kind of the user need state. And, it sounds a geeky term, but fundamentally, most industries charge people differently if they evidently have a choice about whether to book or not.
Right. Now, Carl, if I can come to you. Obviously, for those of you who don't know Carl, he did something quite amazing in Scandinavia, which I'm sure he'll share with everybody. And after that time, you actually dragged the OTAs back to the negotiating table. Do you want to just share with people what you managed to do in the Scandinavian countries?
That's correct. So you very well described, I think in the description of this panel, it said the relationship is more like an unwanted marriage. I have to say that I'm now happily married, not only with my wife, but more importantly for this panel, with the OTAs. Because we did divorce in 2012, and the relationship was more or less non-existing with a few of the OTAs in the Scandinavian market in 2013. But after that, as you said, we came back to the negotiations table, and I think that now the balance is a lot better and the relationship is a lot better. And I guess our main concerns, of course I can't go into what the New Deal or is or anything like that, but our main concerns obviously was rate parity, last room availability, the bidding of our own branded words, and the commission level. But I must say that after being through this, there are some things that we took away from it and that we really learned. And one is the hotel industry is leaving a ton of money on the table working with rate parity. And the second thing was the billboard effect that everyone was talking about is, at least in our market, I should say, was non-existing. And the third thing that we learned is a little bit to what Tom is saying. You really need to look at OTAs differently, because you want to work closely together with them because they really bring value, but you also want to work smart with them and work with the OTAs that bring the kind of business that you would like to your hotel. So yes, 2013 was a bit painful, but I think now we're happily married again, so we're happy about that.
So obviously we have a number of people from quite a few countries here. Are any of you also experiencing investigations in your own regions, in your own countries, from your governments into this issue of rate parity? Jan?
Yeah. So if we are still talking just about price parity, but probably there is a question if there is time to start a communication about the commission parity, because for me it's a question why we have to pay for one OTA 22% commission, to the other one just 10, to the other one 12. So there is a question for our friends from the OTAs if there is no time to start a communication about the commission parity.
Okay. Something that you mentioned there, Carl, is last room availability. For some people, even more important than the rate parity issue was last room availability. Cho, how do you work with last room availability, and is this something that's essential for your business?
Yes, because a majority of our hotel members, the market they're looking into is the corporate market, so last room availability is the must. But then if you look at the OTA side, some of the OTAs are also getting into the corporate market, especially, I won't name names, but some German ones. And I'm sure that is a major wish that their corporate clients would want. Again, is last room availability. I think the balance for hoteliers is look at the OTAs as, okay, it's a channel of getting the bookings. Who owns the customers? Hoteliers should own their hotels, the rooms. They build it, they spend so much money in it. But then the guests, some of the OTAs would say the guests that come from them because they're spending millions of dollars per night advertising on TVs. And it's up to us as hoteliers to turn the guests around. As soon as they come through the door, they become my guests. And hopefully they will be repeated guests. And that is a very fine balancing act, how to do it.
So, Joe, you've got a situation with Google who claim that for somebody who's going on vacation, it is somewhere like 17 websites that they visit before they actually make that reservation. But let's say on average it's just 10 minutes per website. That's not a lot of time on one website. But in your experience, and obviously what we do know, is that a guest who comes and stays in a hotel is probably going to spend at least 8 hours in that hotel. And therefore, there is that opportunity to get that guest to be loyal to the property in which they're staying. Jose, have you got any view on that? I mean, what do you think hotels should do to make their guests or encourage their guests to be more loyal? And the follow-up question, if I may, to that is that the OTAs are now launching their own loyalty programs. And how is that going to affect the loyalty programs that the hotels have?
Well, I mean, to some extent, if we talk about the loyalty of the user to the hotel or to the brand, we're all human. We can all be loyal to different brands. So in our case, in Hotel Tonight, you're loyal to Hotel Tonight because it's your tool that helps you find a curated list of hotels that match your taste, and that you can book in the last minute finding the best deals. But to some extent, after that first touch base with the hotel, it's up to the hotel to actually make the guest to fall in love with them. And the next time that they plan in advance and they want to go to that same city, they already have that hotel. So why risk it? Just book in advance and book directly with the hotel. Through our numbers, basically 90% of our bookings, over 90% of our bookings are from guests that have never stayed at that property before. Now that by itself might sound like we're bringing guests that will stay at the property, and they might be lower value guests. But the reality is that with Hotel Tonight, our guests spend on property 18% more than the average OTA customer. So we're bringing high value customers to your property. Now the hotelier has a chance to make that customer loyal to their brand, and we actually celebrate that.
So do you have your own loyalty program with Hotels Tonight?
Not at the moment. Well, we have our own referral program in which if you really like Hotel Tonight, you talk about Hotel Tonight with your friends, you share your promo code, and it's only for the first time booking, basically. They get £15 off their first booking, and if they like it, they can share their promo code to more people. So they use Hotel Tonight and they try the experience. But never say never. It might make sense at some point. What we don't want to do ever is to cannibalize guests for hotels. It's their hotel, it's their strategy, and we're a partner, and we plan to be in this business for over 100 years.
Okay. Richard, is that the reason why OTAs have grown so fast is because hoteliers do not do a very good job on distribution? And in fact, what's happening quite often is that they've tried always to have a higher price on their own webpage, and also when you're going to do a booking agents, quite often they are not as sleek as some of the OTAs. Don't we need to learn some of the lessons there? And I guess in the Scandinavian markets, it has been much more upgraded to much more advanced systems. But in some of the other markets that we find, it's quite complicated to make a booking on the hotels. Carl?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that we want to or can compete with the OTAs in terms of technology, and but where we can compete is at the hotel, and when we're talking about loyalty, I'm not sure that the loyalty program itself brings loyalty, but I think it's a value proposition and looking at the entire customer journey where you find loyalty. And one piece of that journey that the OTAs don't have is when the actual guest walks into your hotel and until they leave, and that's where your focus should be. Our focus in this divorce and remarriage has been on the transactional piece, on the booking engine. So I guess we've come a far way there, but our focus now is definitely shifting away from that and more into other areas along that journey.
And the main other problem I can see is the oligopoly that is in the marketplace, where you've got two major OTAs that they are actually controlling awfully a lot of hotel bookings. And in fact, they can divert or direct bookings to particular hotels. And I think that is creating a whole range of things. And also, it enables them to put terms and conditions that they are not necessarily competitive. For example, I was speaking to some of the hoteliers earlier that they are giving they have to give a minimum allocation, but they cannot close this allocation when they are fully booked themselves. Who would like from the hoteliers? Joe, would you like? Do you see an issue with the oligopoly that is emerging in the market?
Yes, because I just came back from ITB Asia. I was speaking to quite a lot of hoteliers there, and somebody told me that the very strong OTA there, one of them, said...
We can name names, don't worry.
Booking.com. Okay. That you're not allowed to sell any rates, even on your website, lower than the rate that we have on our website. And the hotel is scared because, crikey, 30% of my booking comes from Booking.com. What should I do?
Exactly. We have exactly the same situation in Greece where a lot of the properties, as you know, they're very small. And you may have 20 rooms and you have an allocation of 4 rooms. August comes or whenever, you've got very high demand, you've got your regular customers, and you cannot reduce the price. Some of the Greek hoteliers who are on the audience, they've done what they've increased the price dramatically. So say they're pricing a room to 10,000 euros. And of course, this is not the price for the room, but they just make sure that they'll discourage people to buy this room because they cannot take that out of the allocation of Booking or Expedia. And that was on the news recently. Tom, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that at least there's 2, right? Because we occasionally get a angry OTA account manager on the phone to a hotel that's on Secret Escapes, and again, we make it very clear it's not the same person that's booking on the 2 places, but. And your experiment is probably very interesting. It's 30% of bookings that are coming from Booking.com right now. You wonder how many others would get hoovered up by Expedia, by the own website, by your own PPC bidding if you came off Booking.com, right? So it's always, understanding the elasticity in the market is obviously super, super complicated, but the story's not probably as scary as it looks at first blush when you see the split by the OTAs right there and then. I presume that was your experience.
Yeah, well my view on the last room availability is that at first sight it isn't all that bad, but because if you have a partnership with someone, of course, if you have 1 room to sell, the partner should also be able to sell that, right? But the issue becomes when they have 30%, because you can't control it. You're getting more and more dependent on. Oh, it's Booking.com. Okay. Booking.com. Yeah, no, you get more and more dependent on the OTAs, and that's when it becomes an issue, when you're losing your leverage in a negotiation.
Can I just change the tact a little bit, because there's a lot to cover. One of the questions that actually was put up to me to ask was, why should OTAs be allowed to bid on hotel terms? I was trying to register a company the other day. I'm not allowed to register a company that somebody else has got. Why is it, for example, Jose, that you're allowed to bid on the terms that we own? So we're Best Western. We've got 4,200 hotels worldwide. Why is it that people seem to think it's perfectly all right to try to divert business away from us with the power that the OTAs have, and may I say, in inverted commas, steal the business from us because we don't have the power, we don't have the same deep pockets as Booking.com, for example? Why is that acceptable?
Well, that is something that Hotel Tonight is very much against. We don't do it. We just don't bid on keywords that include the names of our hotel partners, because that is cannibalization, and we're very much against it. We think that it's not fair in many senses.
So that's a pretty clear statement.
It's a very clear statement. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, why should we do this? We're here supposed to be your partners and try to bring you business that you, by yourselves, because you have to take care of so many things when you run a hotel chain, you cannot do by yourself. So we're bringing you new customers. We're helping out. So if we bid on the same terms, we're stealing your customers.
Would you like to see that being made, let's say, law? Would you like to see that people cannot bid? We had a lot of people in the early days of .com, of the internet, were actually creating websites called Coca-Cola.com and then trying to sell them on to Coca-Cola, and that was stopped very quickly. Why is it that this is like this? Do we need governments to get involved?
Maybe so. I wouldn't know, to be honest. I think that to some extent it's not that very long-term thinking to operate that way, because you're basically playing against the interest of your partner, which is the actual one that owns the building and the rooms. So eventually, if they find a way to not depend on you, you're going to be the first one to be let go. Yeah. So business-wise, it doesn't make sense in that sense.
Tom, you want to, do you bid on other hotel names?
Do we bid on other hotel names? No, not really. Sometimes when we've got a sale on, so, you know. But the reason we don't do it is because we're very, very different to Booking.com and Expedia. So when we bid on Google, and we spend an awful lot of money, we bid on discount hotel break and all that kind of stuff, because the page you land on says, sign up to Secret Escapes and you'll get a couple of hundred really exciting deals every week. So it would just be ludicrous to bid on a Best Western hotel term. Now, I think the way the PPC, the online market, is structured right now, kind of the big OTAs who are trying to effectively cannibalize some of the direct traffic, they create a loyalty, a B2B loyalty, but it's a forced loyalty, isn't it? And I think what we've seen quite often, even in online hospitality, is disintermediation by somebody else tends to fix that problem a bit faster than government regulation does. But I guess maybe I'd turn the question around. Do you or any of your online marketers ever bid against rival hotel brands?
No, we do not.
But what do you think of that? Because Coke are allowed to say we're better than Pepsi.
Yeah, that's right. There's nothing wrong with sort of healthy competition, and I know that that's one of the things that the OFT and now the CMA is trying to do. It's about how you do that competition. Jan, you've got 500 hotels in Europe which are independent. So do they see the OTAs in general as being enemy, friend, or this American word frenemy?
So it's quite hard to say because all of our hotels in historic hotels view are independent hotels. Of course, we need a support from the OTAs, but if we speak about the loyalty, for us it's very important to make people loyal directly to our properties. Let's say because what is the biggest value of the OTA? Okay, it's a price, but that's all. And I think that our business is about two-way communication. It's a communication between the customer and the hotel. And I have a lot of experiences, and I see a lot of us have the same experience. If you do the booking through some OTA, doesn't matter which one, and you have just a simple request, everything is fine. But try to put 3 or 4 individual requests to your booking. For example, that you will come with a pet, you need to book a parking place, and you need a cot for your baby. And I can guarantee to you that 90% of the hotels doesn't reply to the request made by the OTA because they do not pay attention to the request from the OTAs. But if you have a two-way communication, the client, the customer, and the hotel, I can guarantee you that you will reply as a hotelier. So this is the main difference, why we would like to transfer as much reservation directly to our independent hotels.
Thanks. Dorian, the OTAs, hugely powerful. We know that. And the market cap of Booking.com, some people say, is actually greater than the largest hotel company in the world, IHG. But is there a flaw in their model? Is it potentially that if they don't get the rooms to sell, what happens if? We know that the airline industry, being quite a consolidated industry, said no more commissions and no more commissions. But the hotel industry, we've got 500 hotels in Europe alone, which are independent. Some people believe there's up to 70% of all hotels in Europe which are not branded. So we're very fragmented. But if we ever got our act together and said no more commissions to OTAs, what would happen to the OTA business model?
If it hasn't been left too late, I think is the question. I think the Expedia and Priceline are both running at 50 billion apiece market cap. So that puts them in a pretty powerful position compared to any hotel chain. Is there a flaw in their model? I think it's kind of been slightly understated today. as far as I'm concerned, both companies built up their businesses on a price-fixing model. They spend fortunes on advertising, and they hold it all together by being able to guarantee that they've got the best rates, which they can do because they make sure that no one else is undercutting them. That's not such a flaw in itself. It was quite a strong business model. Where they will come unstuck is if rate parity breaks down, because they can't afford to compete and discount their prices. They haven't made any allowances for that at all. They wouldn't possibly be able to spend the same amount of money that they do on advertising as they are now. So, yeah, I think if the hotel industry stood up to them and demanded free competition on prices, that would possibly be the end.
I don't think that's a matter of who is standing up to whom. I think it's a matter of demand and supply. If you've got enough demand and you can fill up your hotel without OTAs, or you can work with a model to play that you bring in OTAs when you really need them and less when you don't need them. And if you create sufficient demand with your repeat customers and your new business, then perhaps you can reduce your dependency. I mean, we're talking about OTAs like this is new in terms of distribution, but if you're in distribution for many years, you realize that a lot of the Mediterranean summer kind of places, they've always depended on tour operators. They've always depended on TUI and First Choice and Thomas Cook and all these guys. And again, they were not only they're fixing prices, but they're determining prices. They used to come and they will say, no, this is your price, and this is how much I'll pay, otherwise you're not in the brochure. Now we've got all kinds of technology, social media, to communicate, engage with the customers in a very, very different ways. And in fact, we can always play a little bit with the prices hoteliers on the background, not so much on the front line. That's why I tend to see distribution as a much bigger kind of issue. It's about demand and supply at the end of the day, differentiation, how you are presenting the market. That's why I like Tom's website in the sense that, and the approach, because in the sense it differentiates the product.
Well, but I totally agree. I don't think it has to be as binary as maybe the question is phrased. So, and you know, if I can attempt to speak for the hoteliers, but please beat me if I'm wrong, kind of fundamentally, if your own mailing lists and direct-to-website trade got you to your occupancy goal of, say, 90%, you'd never touch another OTA, right? And you can get that number, that organic, that ideal trade number up by the things we've discussed, by loyalty, by your own marketing. And then it's just a question of a gap between what looks like it's going to happen and what you'd ideally like to happen. And you know, we at Secret Escapes, probably very similar to Hotel Tonight, we like to think we can help fill that gap in potentially a kind of slightly happier relationship than maybe the big OTAs do. But, and you know, I guess our assumption has always been that OTAs can be on and off, but also they can be tuned. You know, if you don't need as much Booking.com trade as maybe you did last quarter, maybe you don't, you know, pay all the little optional extras so you end up near the top. And then you can slowly decrease your reliance rather than it just being a straight out on-off.
Okay, I'm very keen that we have some audience participation and to address some of your questions. So we've got a very experienced panel here, as you can see, that can pick up on several questions. I'll start with Simon in the corner, and I'll ask Simon to introduce himself, although he's probably one of the very few people that he needs introductions in this room.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Simon Calder from The Independent. And look, I'm going to put the point of view of the guests, because here I am. I spend thousands of pounds, euros, dollars every year on hotels. Some I book direct, some I book through OTAs. But what worries me as a customer is what I'm seeing in terms of value being taken out of the transaction. Whenever in a low margin business like the travel industry, I'm seeing huge amounts of advertising, whether that's page after page of cruise advertising in newspapers, although advertising in newspapers is a very good idea, everyone, or expensive primetime ads for Trivago, a meta search operation. I'm thinking, hang on, I'm paying for this. and I want to know where that money is going. And surely the way forward for hotels is to do what the excellent Hotel Astor, where I was lucky enough to stay last week in Miami Beach, does, which is said you can book us through an OTA, you can book us direct. If you book direct, we'll give you a free breakfast and you can borrow one of our funny green bicycles. So I went with that, but I'm not seeing that from many hotels. So where's my money going, please?
Okay, so Carl, where is the hoteliers or the guest money going? There they are. They want to get value for their £200 at their choice hotel in Stockholm, and 20% of it goes straight out of the window before they step through the door.
Yeah, so obviously that's a big concern and a challenge. The more traffic we drive through OTAs, we know where that money is going. And our profit is obviously suffering. So what we need to do is more gain control of our own distribution and try and compete there, but also use the OTAs in a sensible way. The other thing that I think where, again, our focus need to go is to the entire customer journey, and as you're alluding to, more the added value items along that journey, because only looking at some hotels are in a position where they can offer better rate on their own website, but most of the industry they can't. And if you can't, then you need to use other means. And I would say that that's a perfect example. Add value to the customer journey and build loyalty in that sense.
So add value before the guest has even arrived at the hotel?
I think throughout. Both at the time of the booking, offer added value through your direct channels, but then again after booking, pre-stay, during the stay, you can work with a lot of different techniques too.
So am I hearing that you advocating rate parity but product disparity? I mean, how does that sit with Hotels Tonight? If someone comes onto your site, gets the same rate as the hotel, but gets something which is beneficial to the guest when they actually walk through, whether it be a green bicycle or half a bottle of wine if you eat in the restaurant?
Well, when we started Hotel Tonight, it was very much focused on discount. But very early on, we figured out that our business is actually more about value, and customers care about value, as the question was basically asked. What we try to do is provide that value, whether that be a good discount and the best price available, or if it is just more contextual relevance for the user. So be it the location, the right location for the user, be it the right amenities, be it some value adds that we offer, we call HT bonus as ourselves. And what we try to do is actually become that surgically precise tool that helps hoteliers to bring an uncomparable experience. Because these devices, these smartphones that we all carry around, this is basically your remote control for your life. You can do a lot of things with this. We actually have started to do tests of being able to do express checking with this device, so you don't need to go to the front desk. In some hotels, we also have done the keyless entry, so you use this device to be as if it was your key to your room. And you can do that. And that is amazing, right? No more trips downstairs to ask for the demagnetized card and I need a new card and all that. It frees up a lot of time from people in front desk to actually do more value-add activities too and enhance the experience. Imagine that you could do more things like purchase things on the room or services in the hotel.
Can I ask, Joe, so do you give extra benefits, extra value to guests who are booking directly?
Yes, we always advise our hotel members to do so. I mean, if they want repeated guests, why don't you say, before they check out, and say, look, when you come next time, there's a voucher. When you look at, I think as hoteliers, we need to learn from other retailers. And they've done a good job. Tesco, Sainsbury, now the lower cost supermarket, they all do the same. If you have a voucher next time you visit, 20% off or something like that. So next time you visit, £10 worth of drinks at the bar. You're not giving away the money because they come back to claim it. So you got another stay.
I'm doing some work with the Hotel Icon Hong Kong. And one of the things that they put on their website is that if you book directly with us, you overall save 30% of the price than if you book through one of our distributors. I was a little bit surprised to see that, but actually it works and the customer knows. And I think the other things, once you have got the customer in your hotel, you can do all kind of upgrade conversations, not only for this day, but also for the next day, and also between chains, you can take from one property to the other property. So if I stay in one of the Best Western hotels, Richard, you may like to say next time you're going to another Best Western hotel, we'll give you a cross-selling between different properties that belong to the same chain. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of the Best Western Rewards program. There's 22 million members of that rewards program, and all the time we're cross-selling.
Okay. Ian has got the microphone there. Ian, would you like to say who you are and where you're coming from? Because you're coming from very far away.
Hello, this is Ian Yeoman from the European Tourism Futures Institute in the Netherlands and Victoria University in New Zealand. I've got a question to the panel. If you come back to this conference in 5 years' time on the same topic, in 5 years' time, what will be the same, what will be less of, and what will be more of? Just pick one thing you think is going to be different or significant.
Would we have distributors in 5 years' time? I was one of the very few people who predicted wrongly that we don't need distributors, tour operators, and travel agents back in the 1990s. I was proven totally wrong, but hey, at least you can learn. So 5 years' time, where are we going to be? Are we going to have price parity?
I think price parity is a somewhat artificial construct anyway. I think I've made that clear. But I guess to start the ball rolling, I think something will have changed in the relationship one step even further upstream. I think Google has been very, very quiet in this space. And right now, Booking.com is their biggest customer, I think, globally. And, you know, it's not entirely inconceivable the shoe will be on the other foot in 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's go to Carl. Some people are actually saying one of the big trends which hasn't hit us yet is the media houses. So Google, Facebook, Twitter, the power that they have with the next generation of hotel bookers. Are the OTAs really going to come under threat, not perhaps from the hotel industry, but from the media houses?
I think eventually it will. I don't know if that's 5 years from now, earlier or later, but I certainly believe that Google will step in at some point. And I think it might be an effect of what we're seeing in the rate parity issue. If we have, I think there's 11 competitive authority that's investigating rate parity as we speak, and if that's no longer going to be valid, then the positions of Booking and Expedia will be completely different, and that's maybe when other players step into that market.
Joe, what are you seeing as trends? You've got a worldwide brand. What are you seeing as trends, sort of negative and positive?
Right. I think actually less than 5 years' time, we might see, we are all getting time poor, even worse. And there will be a system somehow would say, look, it's about time for you to go on holiday. Looking at your past bookings, etc., I would recommend you to go to A, and looking at the kind of hotels you like, this will be the one that you should go for, and this is the best price you should book. And if you don't, if you don't do anything, we book it for you. Because of the data that people are collecting. So it might happen.
It's a big data, a big trend.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else want to answer Ian's question then?
Well, to some extent, I have to agree with Joe here. I think that what we're going towards is more personalization. Maybe because we're mobile-only operator, I talk too much about mobiles, but everybody knows that we're going mobile, right? So everybody knows that this industry is little by little shifting into this kind of devices that are not devices that you're happily going to share with people. You don't take your smartphone and you give it to anybody. So we can collect a lot and learn a lot from your tastes and give you hotels that are relevant to you for the use that you want to have and help you find the right hotel at the right time with the right services. So I think there's going to be more of that. And I really hope, and we're fighting for together with hoteliers, that hotels will have even more ownership on their rates and their inventory, because it's the way that it should be, in our opinion.
Okay. Very good. Daniel, would you like to say who you are?
Hi, I'm Daniel from Criteo. Someone earlier made
What is Criteo doing?
We actually do big data, personalization, performance advertising. So thank you for raising the topic. But my question is about something different. Someone earlier made a comment about the fact that the industry, the airline industry, is very consolidated, and they managed to basically say, hey, let's just stop doing commissions, and that's a fact of life. And should the hotel industry try to do something similar? In fact, in the US, there has been a tentative approach to build one hotel site for all the chains, Roomkey, but apparently hasn't worked at all. So I wanted to know if you want to comment on this. Why has this not been working at all? And it seems even like Roomkey is being potentially shut down. There's rumors, of course. So is there no hope for the industry to work together towards a common approach to distribution?
If I may say, from our point of view at Best Western, it's an interesting subject area. With regards to Roomkey, we don't have any hotels in Roomkey in Great Britain. We were the first commercial partner of Roomkey, but not one of the founding partners, and that's because of our governance, our constitution. We're a membership organization, and therefore we were disallowed from being part of Roomkey. So we know exactly what they're trying to do. One of the biggest challenges for us, certainly in Great Britain, was when you actually got the percentage and you added a little bit here and added a little bit there because of admin charges, it actually wasn't any better than the OTAs. That, to me, is why it failed, or failing, in some people's opinion, put it that way. The reason why we haven't joined is it doesn't add any value to the transaction. It keeps it just about where it was. So why would you switch? It doesn't have the same power. We heard from Dimitrios just before we started this panel that I think Booking.com's just gone through 500,000 hotels worldwide. If you look at Roomkey, they're just an annoyance to Booking.com right now. They're not a serious partner. So if you were to look at Roomkey and try and find one of our hotels, you couldn't find it. So immediately that aggregator, that whole concept breaks down. So that's, I believe, in one. Anybody like to add anything to that?
I guess our view of Roomkey is that that's a perfect example why the industry is so different from the airline industry. It is so defragmented. So if you have 6 founding partners that should sit down around the same table and lay a strategy, it gets quite complicated. And I think that's one of the reasons. I think that the idea behind Roomkey and how it all started, I think, was a good idea. But after that, it got kind of blurry. Where are they going with the whole product?
I would like to ask the hoteliers in here whether you have recently called your own hotel, because I'll give you an example of where our industry is failing badly. And I called 10 of our hotels some time back and asked them for a rate and said that I was on Booking.com right now, and the rate was the same, should I book on Booking.com? I'll give you one example of, I think you probably have heard of Gleneagles Hotel, the hotel where they've just had the Ryder Cup. So about 9 months ago, I called that hotel and said I wanted to book a single room at some time in the future. And the person said, yes, we can give you a room for £458. And I said, but I'm on Booking.com right now, and the room rate is £280. And the guy said, yes, that's because the room that we're offering you is 2 grades higher. So I said, well, I'm on my own. I'm only there for one night. I'm quite happy to pay the £280. And he said, I can't see that room. And I knew why he couldn't see it. Everybody who's a hotelier here will know, because he then said our 2 systems cannot speak to each other. So I said, but I want to book this room at £280. And I said, should I book on Booking.com? He said, absolutely, if I was you. Now, can you imagine if you're the owner of Gleneagles Hotel? He's just lost £178 plus 18% commission to Booking.com. We are continuously shooting ourselves in the foot. And until we get the education through to our receptionists and our sales teams and to our reservation teams, the OTAs will continue to strip out margin from our industry because we're not acting in the best interest of ourselves or in the best interest of the guest. So to Simon Calder's point about what about the guest, if I've got a room at Gleneagles at £300 and I'm paying 18%, I've got about £54 to play with. I think I could give that guest a fantastic bottle of red wine in the room and actually save myself about £30. And who loses out? The OTA. So we need to work with the OTAs when we need to, but not always. I don't know if there's any opinion.
It's a matter of empowerment of employees as well, because you've got the reservation clerk or the receptionist who is picking up the phone, and he sees the system. The system says rack rates. Now, they don't necessarily have the brain or the authority to actually to sit down and say, hold on a second, why do I lose 80 pounds to Booking or to any OTA rather than negotiate? But from the management point of view, and that's probably something that our hoteliers need to pick up, do we authorize our frontline employees to actually go into this kind of negotiations and understand how they can play with that? And the second issue that has got to do with price parity is that quite often a lot of people I speak to, they're afraid that OTAs are taking them out, so they will not go below their price even on the phone because they feel that they'll be penalized afterwards if the OTAs find out that they sold their room for less.
That's happening continually. And I think perhaps Tom's because you're not in the front line, you're not realizing quite how much pressure hotels are under. Priceline routinely call hotels and ask for a discount on the rate that they've seen on Booking.com. And when they catch, if any hotel is unfortunate enough or brave enough to offer them a discount, they immediately get penalized for that. Hotels are completely bound by this.
Well, you know, I think if you'll accept me running with your metaphor, it's not that we're not in the front line, we're just on a different front for the hotel, right? So in any industry, in any negotiation, if the person on the other side of the table knows you're not going to walk away, you're not in a great negotiating position. Like, I absolutely wouldn't dispute that. All I'm saying is it appears that life gets a lot easier if you can make it feasible in your negotiation that you may walk away, right? I wouldn't for a second dispute that there are hoteliers out there who are forced loyal to Booking.com and Expedia. I think, in fact, I said that. But there's an element of waiting for regulation and the government to catch up, see whether there's something wrong there. But I think businesses like Secret Escapes, to an extent, Hotel Tonight, although it's a slightly different model, I think we do a very powerful service to customers that are in no way forced loyal, to customers that use us because they think we help with occupancy, in order to adjust that dynamic in a positive direction for the hotel. So if you know that you can run a marketing deal, so with us or with the Travel Zoo or something like that, and move your occupancy up 20, 25% in a week, that makes a fraught conversation with your account manager at Booking.com and Expedia a bit easier, right? And the problem, and you know, we see it as well, so we often question, should we bid on our own brand name on Google? So it's very much the same thing. It doesn't feel as if you should have to do it. But every now and then, you run that experiment. Mm-hmm. But no, I certainly wouldn't want to imply that kind of it's easy. I think the fact that everybody uses military metaphors makes it pretty clear it's pretty tough.
And interestingly, both of your brands are built out of rate parity in any case.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, it's only secret because you're not allowed to disclose the prices.
No, that's not true.
No?
It's secret because you have to be a member to see the prices.
And why do you have to be a member to see the prices?
Because I'll accept the tee up. The proposition of Secret Escapes is that we drive bookings that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So it's not a legal reason we don't show the price, but we wouldn't be credible on the phone to a hotel when we say that 90% of those bookings are purely incremental if they turned up on MetaSearch, if they turned up on Booking.com. It's an absolutely different end of the market, which is why, when hotels work with us, they see that occupancy rate go up, they see their sales through the other channels say exactly the same, and so they can look at the incremental margin driven by those incremental sales.
Okay, so Tom, if I may say, this Skyscanner appeal and the possible investigation into the fact that if you're discounting, you have to publicly show that discount if it goes that way, is that, in your view, somewhat challenging for your business model?
So I'm not a lawyer, but that's not how I understand where the case would head. So I don't think anybody seriously thinks that hotels aren't going to do channel discounts under any regulatory regime, right? So by the same token, you would imagine that loyalty scheme customers would have access to different deals. So in answer to your question, no, I'm not worried.
That's a very interesting point, because we tested that after the first judgment, and we were told, absolutely, you cannot do that. So the question was, we asked whether we could give discounts to our rewards members and not give those discounts across to the OTAs, and the answer was, no, you cannot.
Well, as I say, maybe this is just a sign that there's just an awful lack of transparency in this. But fundamentally, I think any right-minded person would think discounting based on whether somebody is planning to come and book this trip anyway, or you're persuading them to take a trip they weren't planning to take, would be a right-minded thing to do.
But I think we need to look into different OTAs and different kind of propositions. I think when I look into your proposition, it's all about nice luxury that you can have at a little bit of lower price. If I look into Hotel Tonight's proposition, it's all about context. Here I am, I need a room in about an hour maximum. What is the available thing, what can I do? When I look into Booking, it's much more, I've got the whole census. When I look into any price scanner kind of thing, I'm much more into, I've got time to actually do a lot of bargaining. And I think the other thing is that when you materialize, when you arrive at the hoteliers are now becoming very clever to give you different levels of service and rooms depending on the rate that you've paid. Someone was telling me if you book for a particular OTA, you always get the first floor rooms, or the rooms that they don't have the better view and things. I think the most important thing from the hotelier's point of view is, can we differentiate the product? Can the product be unique in the sense that people will be buying that intentionally from us rather than go to OTAs and search any four-star hotel in London will do actually. And I think perhaps, Jan, from your historic hotels, this is very different. Each of your properties are very different. How can you bring out this differentiation? How do you shout out about the beauties of your properties?
So you said it perfectly, because this is the way how we do it, okay?
Hey!
Yeah, it's true. We are quite conservative, but I go back just for a while to the Richard's nice story about the price parity, because I was talking, there is no commission parity in Europe, okay? And actually there is a new trend we see in the Eastern Europe, mostly in Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland, that well-educated clients, they have a lot of information because of the new devices. They contact the reservation department in the hotel, and they ask for a ransom, let's say. You have to give us 15% discount, or we do the booking via the Expedia, and you have to pay 25% commission. How can we fight with this fact? Because there is no commission parity, you know, and now actually we are in a very hard situation. So this is another point of view.
How do you reply to that?
So actually,
it's called 50-50, no? we split the commission.
Okay, it's about the communication because we are different hotels, okay? But finally for us, we are probably a little bit conservative in this case, and we are not fighting for these clients, okay? We try to build loyalty with the clients. When we were speaking about the new devices and the fast check-in and online check-in in advance and so on, okay, I really like it, but I'm a hotelier. For me, the hospitality is about the contact between the hotel and the customer, a personal contact, okay? So we can make the check-in much more faster, of course, via the device, but I still prefer personal communication with the reception because they can do a cross-promotion, they can offer some upgrades and so on. And this is what we also do. If you do the bookings directly via our booking engine, we make automatically upgrade for you. If you make the bookings through some OTA, you get just the standard. It's the same.
To your point about the 15%, 25%, I think that the hoteliers have a fantastic opportunity to always add value. So just discounting, it's just a number. And today it's 15%, tomorrow it's 16%. But there's a lot of things that actually have perception of value. That is breakfast. A lot of people, certainly in city centres, will actually be going to that hotel and then eating in another restaurant outside of that hotel. So by saying to that guest who says, I want 15% discount, actually give them something in your own restaurant. That way you actually keep them inside the property, whereas normally or perhaps they might actually go and eat somewhere else. So there are opportunities. It's not just a case of 25% here or 15%. You might have to give 10%. I think most hoteliers can live with 10%, especially if you get some added income and revenue from that guest.
Yeah, you are right. And it's not just about the money, okay? Because the main topic or the main headline of the History of Hotels Europe is a story to tell. So we are building the story, we are selling the story, and so on. And in 1938, Aldo Gucci says that the story and experience is remembered long after price forgotten. So we are creating a story about our hotels. So it's not real about the price.
Yeah.
Casimir, you have the floor. Would you like to say who you are, please?
Yes, thank you. My name is Casimir Platzer, and I represent the International Hotel and Restaurant Association. The hospitality industry is one of the biggest industries worldwide, the backbone of tourism. We have heard a few things. We also have heard that room key is not really working. Why? Some big brands have sit together around a round table and have tried to make a competition for the big OTAs. It's not working because not the whole industry is part of roomkey.com. You have said, Richard, that the airline industry have decided to fix the commissions or lower the commissions and not give more for distribution. Our industry is so fragmented, but if we do our homework properly, I think the big players of the industry, the big brands, but also the important associations should be sitting around a table and do our homework and put more power, work together, put more power, and take the book into our hands. And I think that is needed. We have heard that in the future, maybe Google and the medias are going to take over distribution. So this is the moment where the industry should sit together with the media and be partner with them so that we have better distribution with the distribution that we will have in 5 years. So I think there's a big need for a strong representation for the industry. We're one of the biggest industries, but we're not handling it properly.
Can I just say that, in particular, I think it's a matter of education, it's a matter of training, especially for the independent hoteliers, that they may not have got the access to marketing resources, social media resources, and the ability to understand how they can build their product, position their product, and deliver their product in a nice way. I've done some work for the Historic Hotels of Europe some years back, where they brought all their hoteliers in Dublin and we were discussing with them how they can actually take care of their online reputation and manage their online reputation. How do they deal with TripAdvisor, for example? How do they deal with the different distribution channels? And I think your association and regional associations per country should take a lead on that and bring some experts together to train the hoteliers to make sure that they take ownership of their own properties, because quite often ownership is taken away by whoever is bringing you customers. And it's critical for associations and tourist boards to actually train the people that they can do that. So it's a matter of training, education, understanding the tools that we've got available, because a lot of people don't necessarily understand the tools, and they kind of deliver their business to their distributors.
I think it's a very interesting point you make, and if I may say, it's by far not the first time that point has been made. It is about leadership within the industry, but there are some real challenges. There are some legal challenges to what you're suggesting. So unless it's an organization that tries to put that together, when we were going through the Office of Fair Trading situation in this country, I could not even be seen to be talking to some of my counterparts in a public place. So there is a real question about actually fixing certain things that we do in the industry. If it was, for example, your own organization or the British Hospitality Association here in this country, and they asked for our opinion on the findings, the initial findings of the OFT, and we actually wrote in individually, but we didn't actually sit around a table. So there are some challenges. I don't necessarily disagree with the concept, but it is a very difficult thing to actually achieve, because there would have to be a lot of players doing the same thing at the same time. And as soon as you get one person, one big player, just saying, if they're all doing it, I won't, the whole thing breaks down. If you remember, Intercontinental Hotels tried it. They actually stopped dealing with Expedia, and they went back to the table. Choice Hotels were the first. And if I'm allowed to say that whilst Choice Hotels were actually negotiating in the United States, a number, but one particular Choice Hotel said, while these two people have a pissing contest, I'm losing money at my hotel. So there's a lot of real debate about this, but there's also a lot of independent hotels that have got themselves in a position today when they are getting so much business from the OTAs, they don't know what to do about it. Many of my hotels are saying, I can't stop working with the OTAs, but I cannot pay them anymore. And every single month they look at the invoice and it keeps going up and up and up. Yet now they've got caught. They can't stop because they don't know where they're going to replace that business from. But the bottom line is this, that if every hotel, all of you here who perhaps don't live in London, you would be here whether the OTAs existed or not, correct? You would find a hotel in London to stay if the OTAs all disappeared tomorrow. But if all the hotels closed down, where would you stay? Would you stay on the internet? I think not.
Yeah, I think to that point, the industry would definitely welcome an initiative like that, and I think we've seen IHG, we've seen Choice Hotels International taking a lead, and no one was following. In Scandinavia, we had a very successful process where the entire industry followed suit during 2013. But it was a very, very difficult situation, and we really had to move very carefully in terms of what we were discussing, what we were cooperating around. But if we would have some independent organization driving that would, of course, help that situation.
Yeah, Joe?
I don't know why, but I think we need to learn from the Vikings. I've got.
I see why you say you don't know why.
Yeah. That's the Viking spirit we need to learn from, because one of our hotel group members, they're based in Copenhagen and Oslo, and we were talking about earlier on the name bidding by on Google, and their hotel name is always not on the front, and they actually took that to go to Google and say, look, we're not allowed this website to do it anymore. and they succeeded in the end. So that website said, okay, fine, we won't put your name on it, we won't bid for your name. So there is life there that we should, as hoteliers, do something about.
Yeah, I agree.
Sabas here, who is from Louis Hotels, operating in Cyprus and in Greece.
Okay, well, Louis Hotels, we manage resorts in Cyprus and Greece. What I wanted to ask, it's related mostly to TripAdvisor and also Google, mainly the main review websites right now. And I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this, but Booking.com, for example, their first spend is on Google, the second is on TripAdvisor. So that to me, it says that there's a lot of research going on websites like TripAdvisor from Booking.com, from guests, let's say, and then they see the ads from Booking.com and they book it from there. And what I would like to know from the panel is whether you feel that TripAdvisor's efforts with business listings is something that can help hotels attract direct business, because, okay, now you've got business listings, maybe it costs a lot of money. One of our hotels, 100 rooms, TripAdvisor asked for 4,000 euros, all right, just for the business listings. It's a lot of money, but on the other hand, you can have your offer available there all the time, no matter what Booking.com or Expedia is doing, no matter how much money they're spending on the ads, your offer can always be there, like you said before, with the upgrades at a better value guarantee. So, since we haven't talked about that, I just wanted to know how you feel about TripAdvisor.
Thank you very much. So, Jan, do any of your hotels that you know of use business listings with TripAdvisor?
So actually, I don't see it as a problem. A lot of our hotels that are listed on the TripAdvisor. I think there is no problem. The only one problem is about the communication between the hotels and the TripAdvisor, because actually they are so big that they have not enough time to answer the requests. And for example, if you have a fake review, and you know this is a fake review, and you request, please replace the review out of the TripAdvisor, there is no answer for more than 6 months. So if there is someone from TripAdvisor here, you can contact me, okay?
Okay. Carl, are you using business listings on TripAdvisor? Are you seeing, I mean, what return on your investment are you seeing as a brand?
Not sure if I want to share that, but
give a number between.
Well, so we're present on the business listing with TripAdvisor, but I think you need to look at the entire pie, if you will, for where you're gaining traffic from, and look at it from a cost of acquisition perspective. We're seeing that business listing is working for some of our hotels in some markets, and others hotels don't gain that much from it. But you need to set, you know, the cost of acquisition or return on investment level that you're willing to pay, and then look at all the different sources. But yes, no, I strongly believe in the business listings.
I mean, Dorian, do you see this as TripAdvisor's first step into getting into reservations directly? At the moment, they are saying we're going to be different and befriending you, so that the business listings takes the booker to your website, your telephone number. But is this a step of getting more data in order for them to do their own booking site at some point?
That's a logical conclusion to all of this. We have been approached by TripAdvisor, particularly regarding their book direct model, and particularly because I think both Expedia and Priceline have been quite reluctant to give up their brand and allow customers to book direct on TripAdvisor. The only thing I would say about any of this is it's a dangerous game, spending your money on advertising on other travel sites, because the price is only going to go up. You've got other major players forcing the advertising prices up. So if you can only just afford it now, in a year or 2 years down the time, it could just be exorbitant.
So the point about it will only go up. It's this sort of some spiral, that from the fact that you pay 15% to an OTA, you're on page one, and then suddenly you're not on page one. And they go, well, the thing is that if you paid us 2%, 3% more, you would be back on page one. I mean, how many more hotels can they get? Most of the world is now opened up. how are they going to increase their revenue? You know, if they've got to go and get more hotels. If they get more hotels, the hotels they've already got are actually going to get, let's say, you would assume perhaps less business. We do know that the number of people traveling is going up every year. And in 2012, we got through just in, I think in December, it went through the 1 billion traveler across borders. So we know that the tourist industry is growing, but that isn't going to sustain their shareholder value. So where are they going to actually get this extra money? I mean, is it through the advertising? Is it through just keep putting the prices up for hoteliers?
Sure, yeah. They'll squeeze them. And there are always other hoteliers who will swap places with the ones dropping out. And actually, that's another aspect to rate parity. That's the only way the major OTAs can grow their revenue now. I mean, they could spend less on advertising, but they don't. That doesn't seem to be in either of their interests. So they'll just go back to hotels and squeeze some more commission out of you.
Yeah, and how much more commission can we actually pay, Cho? I mean, at one point, it must stop. We cannot continue to pay commission. The guest will not continue to pay the rates that we're demanding when 25%, a quarter, goes out of the window before the guest even arrives. And not only that, I mean, people have been praising on the stage in the panel the advertising marketing power of the OTAs, but that money comes from the hotels. Their ability to be so much better at technology than the hotels comes from us.
Yep.
So where it's not surprising we can't invest in the technology if it is being stripped out from the industry before those guests even not come through our front door.
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's for us hoteliers to up our game. So we were talking about early on about the experience even from the booking until you walk through the door and how you're treated, etc. And when you leave, first thing is before you leave, please, if you've got any issues, tell us. So you don't need to air your frustration on TripAdvisor. That's too late. So how do we capture that? There's technology around. I've seen hotels with. You can use their laptops or tablets to actually say, I want to talk to somebody if you got something to say. And they immediately come to you and say, can we do something for you? What is wrong? And get that sorted out first.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I just want to do an experiment on this. Can I ask all the hoteliers to stand up, please? If you're a hotel person, can you please stand up? Stand up. Thank you very much. Okay, and the photographers count, that's fine. Can I ask those people who have got a community manager on their social media to stay up and all the other people to sit down? If you have a community manager for your social media, please remain standing up. The rest, please sit down. Say that again? They don't need to be full-time community managers, but do have community managers. And you can see the difference. We probably have some like 10% of the people, of the hoteliers, that they've got a community manager in their hotels. And the hotels I collaborate with, I always emphasize, do not give your social media accounts to agencies. Let's work together, train the people in source and resource, and develop the social media, the marketing, and the sales, and the customer care together. Thank you very much. You can sit down now. Some of the hotels I work with, we know the customers before they arrive. We know the customers when they think that they're going to book. We start vetting the customers. We just tell them how they are going to be able to enjoy themselves. We give them all the information that they need, and we show them the experience. When they are there, we understand. Those people who already are active promoting us in social media, we give them the red carpet treatment. They go away, they're happy. They become our ambassadors, they come back. So it's all about the circle. But I think a lot of the hoteliers do not actually understand that. Evidently, from our audience here, only 10% of the people have got someone who is taking care of this. And I think that this is critical in terms of how we are going to develop that and how we are going to develop intentional demand, in the sense that people will not actually go to OTAs to get a cheap price, but they'll come to us to be served, or they may go to alternative OTAs for the lifestyle or the context or the proposition that is out there.
I have a question actually for Jose, if I may. Has anyone ever stayed at a Citizen M hotel? Yeah? Okay. I'm actually staying in one at the moment, testing the competition. So I've stayed there before, and within 5 minutes of me checking out, this is what happened. I got a text on my mobile phone, to your point about everything's being driven from the mobile phone. And it actually said, and if you're not in the hotel, you don't know when I've checked out, whereas the hotel does. Yeah. So I've checked out, I'm now in a cab, in a taxi, going to my next meeting. And I get a text, and it said, "Dear Richard, thank you very much for staying at Citizen M. If you really enjoyed your stay, please let everyone know on tripadvisor.com," and they gave me the link. So all I had to do is touch it and go straight through. If, on the other hand, there was anything that you would like to talk to me about, my name is George Evans, I'm the general manager, and my mobile number is. Now, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. If I wanted to say something great, tell the world. If I didn't have to say something great, call me personally, I'm responsible, and here's my mobile number. Now, I thought that that was brilliant. That's one thing that the hotel can do that the OTAs can't. So to your hotels tonight, when I leave a hotel that I've booked through you, the moment I leave, you don't know that moment, but how do you reach out to me to find out whether I had a good time?
Well, you have, as a user, if we're talking about the user perspective, you have a survey, especially after your first experience, in which you can tell us how it went. And of course, you can leave a comment after each review, to which the users will basically see the percentage of positive reviews that the hotel has, but the actual context and commentary will be only shared between the user and the hotel, so they can be completely blunt and bold about it, and if it's something great, they can be passionate about it, and if it is something horrible, they can be even very more passionate, right?
So it's coming into you and your community.
So, yeah, but that's something that remains between the hotel and the user. The rest of the users will only see the percentage of thumbs up, per se, of the hotel. Coming to that point precisely, it is how we see the industry as a whole is, if you go back in the day when we were starting to have internet in our house, these OTAs that we're referring a lot to, if we refer to history, they did a great and terrific job in bringing this industry to the online world, and that had a lot of benefits. Yes, of course, in order to do that, they had to build different boundaries and different things that, as of today, if any in the audience or here has read the Innovator's Dilemma, a famous book, has become quite not reasonable anymore. And they are there to be disruptive. TripAdvisor came along to say, there's no transparency, not enough transparency. Users might need to be able to publish their opinions out there. But now, TripAdvisor, also, their main client is Booking.com. So how much is this going to be completely fair if you do it that way? Hence, we go into more and more models, like Scrapes, like ourselves, like many others, in which we're trying to find different ways to make this relationship between guests and hotels fair and simple, as we call it ourselves. Bravo. So to your point exactly, we don't only have one commission for all countries. We have 15% for all hotels.
Okay, Tom, do you want to add to that? How are you sort of reaching out to the guests who trusted you to book a hotel that you found for them?
Yeah, well, very, very similar. So we have a post-stay survey, and we are super, super clear. We say, how did you enjoy the hotel, and how did you enjoy Secret Escapes? Right? We're very, very clear there are two different things going on here. So Secret Escapes is effectively a little edited guidebook that you look at every morning in your email. So we have crazy satisfaction scores from people, crazy high, I should say, from people that have never bought anything on Secret Escapes. And that is the big distinction between Secret Escapes, a hotel tonight, and a retail OTA, right? Because I would like to think the value we add is engaging in those deals, dreaming about the trips you might take. But, you know, in a Secret Escapes email, you'll have a hotel in the Maldives, one on Loch Lomond, and one in Liverpool, right? It's kind of, it's not the same as a hotel chain. And so it's just evident, I think, to both the hotel and also Secret Escapes members who are in turn the hotel customers, that we're competing for a different piece of the heart, right? So, you know, Hotel Tonight makes it easier to be a business traveler who doesn't know where he's going to sleep that night. Secret Escapes means you can get joy and dreams for trips you weren't planning to take. And it doesn't feel to me that that sits in competition with the relationship with a hotel, right? So we don't care. Like, just to be super clear about this, we give you the email, you know everything, they're your customer, because it's not a zero-sum game. We can delight the customer, and you can. Yeah. My sense is, to an extent, and why some of this tension exists, it is a slightly zero-sum game between especially a large hotel chain and a large OTA, because both could make a claim to be your first port of call for most of your retail travel, right? And so obviously there's these wonderful neologisms, co-opetition, frenemy, all that kind of stuff, because there is a competition at the heart of that for retail travel. And, you know, there are ways these big market dynamics get disrupted. Sometimes it comes as a one-off, maybe room key isn't it, but maybe there'll be something like that. Or the disruption happens in little niches. So you'll start to find that your Hotel Tonight style business traveler customer isn't using the OTAs as their front door as much as they once were. Or customers that when they do your own surveys say they weren't planning this trip, you're starting to see, okay, they're coming to us from these new types of agents. So, you know, disruption, I think, doesn't necessarily need to be a cataclysm from the top down. Hopefully, the new models, and there will always be new models, and they're easier to do when the internet exists, kind of give clues as to where the market's going to go.
So let's talk about the new models, if I may. The shared economy. We've got Airbnb, and there's lots of others. There's Me Too products coming up. Dorian, do you think that Airbnb is here to stay? It's been around, let's say, 5-6 years, seriously, as a serious player. Now there are some questions about the legality in New York about, you know, are you as a tenant allowed to sublet? Where are we going with the shared economy?
I think Airbnb is the biggest threat or challenge, depending on your perspective, to the hotel industry of all of these things. I have yet to meet anyone who's tried Airbnb once and gone back to hotels. I tried it myself the first time last week, and I'll definitely be going back to Airbnb. I think it's, not only is it a great idea in its own right, it comes at a time when there's so much infighting in hotels at the cost of customer service. They're absolutely primed to take business away from the hotel industry. And I think the legal issues are something of a distraction. They will need to resolve them, but they're not insurmountable. And when they do, I think they're going to steal a march
So,
on us.
Joe's Airbnb a threat to us as hoteliers?
It depends on what type of hotel you are. Because I think as hoteliers, we have rooms, we have our product. As long as we can distinguish our products against an apartment with an owner of an apartment with a spare room or things like that, we are okay. And also, how we can treat Airbnb as another channel of distribution rather than as against us. And we do that smartly and balancing all the channels with looking at the return on investment on each. I think we can include that into our mix.
Okay.
Great.
I can see some people leaving for other meetings and things, so I'd like to do two things. One is to invite you for drinks tonight between 5 and 7 at the Travel Deck Theatre in the Travel Tech bit of the show. This is sponsored by Illusion, and they'll buy us drinks between 5 and 7. So join us there for more discussion. Ines has got the microphone for one question. Then my colleague here has got another one. Let's see how many people would like to ask questions, so we can gradually going to wrapping the session up. Any more questions? Okay, let's go with those two. Ines? Would you like to say who you are?
I'm Ines. I'm a reservation and front office manager of a hotel in the south of France. And I'm going back to TripAdvisor because I think that we're losing control of our image on the internet, because in my case I see how reservations more directly than directors and everything. And in our case, we have had cases of a lot of fakes that we know that this review is a fake review. And we have seen in the hour or 2 hours after this review, it's posted on TripAdvisor, to lose 5 or 6 reservations, for example, for Booking.com. And those reviews are still on TripAdvisor. So I'm not sure.
How do you know that they're fake?
Because they're not. There's a lot of things, but for example, one it's not talking about our hotel. Another, it's a complaint about a thing who was not real. Sometimes it's difficult to deal with customers.
Have you reported them back to TripAdvisor?
Yeah, and I don't have any answer for them. So I'm not sure if it's. I think it has to be a problem for more people. How we can fight this to TripAdvisor. I'm personally going to talk with them before because they're here, but I don't know if I think that we're losing control because we don't have any answer from them, and we cannot call them and tell them, hey.
Well, there are ways of actually addressing online reputation, TripAdvisor and control of. It's not control, but it's about developing and expanding your image online across different social media. And there are techniques and there are experts that they can help you developing that. But how are hoteliers dealing with that? Carl?
Well, I think it's a great point that you're raising, and I see the challenge for especially independent hotels. We have fake reviews every now and then. We report it and it gets fixed, but it's such a complex world for the hoteliers today that we're talking about multiple facets of distribution here, and that is really a challenge for independent hotels as opposed to larger chain hotels. And I would like to go back to the question: where are we sitting 5 years from now? I think there's a lot of areas that we don't know and haven't seen yet, but I also think that we're talking a lot about rate parity in OTAs. I think the discussions will be more upstream, where the TripAdvisor reviews, how do you bring traffic to your website? We say that that's our most important channel, but that's also becoming very expensive now as well, because you have to put all this money into driving traffic to your website. So I think it's a great point that you're raising. We're trying to deal with it as good as we can with TripAdvisor.
I think that to your point, there's no doubt that there are some fake reviews, and the review industry has to try to make sure they're minimized. I think there's always been fake reviews in our industry. You might not have been so public about it, but there will be somebody who's been saying something that wasn't quite true. But what I do believe is that reviews have helped our industry immensely overall. The fact is that for brands like Choice and Best Western, we will have a quality assurance assessment for our hotels, perhaps once a year, perhaps twice a year, and our hoteliers would actually tell us that we caught them on a bad day, that actually they were far, far better than our report would suggest. But now we should not rely on one snapshot judgment. The fact is that guests are going every single day to the hotels and reporting back. And yes, there might be 1 or 2 fake reviews. But if you look at the overall review status, the average across TripAdvisor is now 4.1. So most reviews are positive, not negative. What we have to do is get better at eradicating the false ones, but it is actually raising the expectations of guests and travelers coming to hotels. In my opinion, that's a fantastic thing, because it means that hoteliers have to get their act together. Just like Cho was saying with regards to some other aspect, certainly with regards to online, hoteliers today, there's no hiding place. If you're running a dirty hotel, people will find out. If you're running a hotel that people don't want to stay at, all the potential guests will find out. That means you've got to refurbish, you've got to run a better hotel, and that is a fantastic thing for our industry. So yes, there's some hiccups, but overall I think it's hugely positive. And I'm sure that you'll have some success with TripAdvisor when you actually bring it to their attention.
In fact, we did some research in Bournemouth University some years back, and we identified that the better the hotel that you're running, the more intentional demand you have, the more people that they would like to stay in your hotel, the less you are relying on OTAs, on other distributors. The more people will come to you and they'll say, can I please come and stay in your hotel? And normally I say to a lot of the people that I work with that we really need to get to a situation where customers would like intentionally to stay in our hotel, and they'll refuse to go to the hotel next door, or they're not going to look into the prices between the 2 hotels because they will utterly committed to the loyalty to stay with us. And I think that is
just one more point. If you don't know of a company called Snapshot, they run a very interesting organization, and they are putting their rate. They're working for hotel brands, but they're putting the rate according to the brand's reputation. And they're monitoring it every hour on an ongoing basis. And they know that as their reputation grows in any city or destination, they keep pushing the price up until the expectation of the guest for that price is not met. And then there are complaints. And as soon as that happens, they then start dropping the price just a little bit and a little bit until it balances and starts moving the other way. Now that is science, and that is a fantastic tool for hoteliers. So that is where we need to be going, because you can flex your rates on your reputation, and that means we have to run better hotels for our guests. That's a good thing.
Carl, you want to?
I'd just like to add to that we also see a correlation between higher score and TripAdvisor and the revenue generated index, and I think reputation management pricing is something that the whole industry will look into.
Jose?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, and understanding that point, I mean, agreeing with it, why don't we try and dream a little bit further? Hotels should also have the opportunity to get the information of the quality of the customer that they are acquiring before the customer books and before the customer arrives to the hotel. And knowing a little bit more about their tastes and cross-sell them more services, and offering price discrimination, because not every human being is the same, so they deserve different treatments. And it's not benefiting one more than the other. It's just you don't treat 2 people the same way. And that is something that the hotel industry really, I think, and I believe, needs.
What about this as an idea? Perhaps all the hoteliers should actually start a review site of the guests. So we actually start putting the reputation of the guests. Do they pay? Do they complain? What don't they like? That would be quite interesting.
Okay, last question, or no, not last question, Daniel, and I'll take your question now in a minute.
Hello.
Daniel, would you like to say who you are?
Yeah, my name is Daniel Hagen, and I'm from a small hotelier in Copenhagen called Arthur Hotels. And my question is to Richard, Joe, and Carl. You all represent big hotel companies, which is nice. In Copenhagen, we felt Carl's divorce, and the OTAs were easier to talk with afterwards. But my concern is, in 5 years, when I look back at this, will I see a distortion in the market because the big brands, such as yourself, have bigger power over the OTAs now that they are a bit more afraid of you, and therefore will the smaller hoteliers get to pay the bill in that sense? Or what do you see for the future for the smaller hoteliers? And if you were in my shoes, what would you do?
That's a great question. As I'm chair, I'll allow Carl to answer that first. Gee, thanks. No, I think, I hope the opposite will happen, that the independent hotels can benefit from what maybe the larger chains are doing. But as I said before, being an independent hotel is challenging because there are so many facets of the distribution piece that you need to look after. And if I was an independent hotel, I would really look at what I have control over and what I can influence, and that is the guest experience with my hotel, from when they come into the door until they leave. I think that's where the focus really needs to be. And then if you're in a position where you can pick and choose from the other piece of the customer journey, you should do that. Okay, Joe, because do you see yourself as a representation company? How do you describe a marketing consultant?
It's a representation company for,
okay,
for
so as
most,
a
but also
representation.
marketing. But we do have lots of independent hotels, as you know, in Denmark, for example. Yes, because at the moment, the internet has given even playing field for independent hotels, branded ones, big ones. So it's up to us hoteliers to make the most of it. For example, work on the meta search so you can compete with the OTAs. Make sure your website can be found in the first place, on Google, for example. And then make sure that people who are actually on your website can convert. 3 steps most to get your booking done. That's the first thing. When they come through your door, it is how you treat them.
In fact, hotel chains are distributors themselves. In fact, they are another way of, it's another way of distribution. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for independent small hotels to do their thing. Because if you're a member of a chain, obviously you've got the whole range of requirements, brand-related requirements, pricing requirements. You've got access to a lot of expertise, but at the same time, you're quite constrained by certain things, policies of the chain. And I feel that I work with a lot of independent hoteliers, small properties. They can do fantastic things, absolutely incredible things. That they can be a little bit wacky, they can be a little bit out of the norm, and they can differentiate themselves as being the hotel for that particular reason. And it's incredible what you can achieve by being different. And quite often you need the freedom to be outside from the more organized kind of group to be able to do that.
I think your point about the independent versus the brand, I used to be managing director of Preferred Hotel Group, which is a collection of independent hotels. And Best Western is a membership organization. You try telling one of our hotels that they're part of a brand, they'll say, yes, we are, but we're independent. They're fiercely independent. So I'm not suggesting that all independent hotels should join Best Western, but what I am saying is that there is the power of the collective. So what you have is the strength of independence, but there is power in being part of something. And as an individual, will you be, let's say, beaten up by the OTAs? Probably not. But there are lots of different organizations you could join where you actually could be every bit as powerful. I mean, we're, in real terms, a relatively small company. So we've got 4,200 hotels. You've got 7,000, roughly, 700, Joe. So, you know, as independent hotels, you have many, many, many more than we do. I mean, how's Booking.com got 500,000 hotels? You know, if you add the top 10 hotel companies in the world, we've got nowhere near that number of hotels. So you say that we're powerful, but we're not nearly as powerful as the OTAs. They are hugely powerful. And as we perhaps get a little closer, it's interesting that you should say that they're getting a little bit more frightened of us. I'm not sure that they possibly are. But if they did, then I'm not sure that they're going to say, well, who do we now beat up on? I don't think they're going to come after the independent hoteliers necessarily. Yeah.
You need to buy him a beer afterwards. James, last question. Would you like to say who you are and what you are doing?
Yes, Jim Craven with T-News. And back to the discussion about fake reviews, and I think Richard mentioned about reviewing guests. I'm staying at an Airbnb this time, and actually on Airbnb you review the guests. So this has already started in a different area, and I think someday in TripAdvisor that with mobile and everything interconnected like that, I think that hotels will be able to do that. That's not too soon in the future.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Airbnb people who have the accommodation do review the guests.
Okay, colleagues, we're getting to 2 o'clock. Last word. If we start from Jan and come that way, what do you learn from the panel? What do you learn from the discussion? What are you going to take back to your organization?
So, of course, this kind of networking is quite important for all of us to change information about the future trends, to know what are the problems of our colleagues here in the audience, also the panelists here. So I would contact my colleagues and to reply them that it was quite interesting to be here and to have this knowledge. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jose?
Well, to my extent, it was very interesting to have this discussion and getting, at some part, learning a lot, and some part also getting reassurance that some of the big bets that we have put out there, like just playing with one commission and not making hotels pay more to be higher in display, but actually making them compete to give the better experience possible to the users, things like that, are going to work. And I also quite interested in this idea of reviewing the guest is something that is to be discussed inside of the corporation.
Well, I think the one thing that I take from here is it's a wonderful place to work in right now. It's ever evolving, and it's so much to think about and so much we can do within this space. I think that's great, and I also like to see the different attitudes from the different OTAs in terms of both the business model and the approach to the hotelier. So that was really nice to see.
So,
right. One thing is booking systems and how the way that we book a hotel run from Telex. Anybody know about Telex? Fax machine, telephone, now on mobile phones. So and it will change. Definitely will change. What is not going to change is the guests. The guests will always in the hotel. They will always need to stay at that location. It's how do we treat them. That won't change.
Thank you very much. Tom?
So we have a long-running debate over whether in our marketing materials to hotels we should describe ourselves as an online travel agent, but a different type of one. I think maybe we should flip that around. OTA is almost becoming a toxic term now, isn't it? And fundamentally, I think there are a lot of really exciting businesses that drive trade to hotels. I'm starting to wonder whether we might want to abandon the term. Does mean you'd need to start persuading one of the actual OTAs to come to these things.
We invited Expedia and Booking.com, but given a lot of these things, they decided not to participate, and they had other commitments. But I think the issue is really about the value proposition and where you are positioning this. And I think a lot of people see OTAs as a mechanism to reduce price and to commoditize the product. And I think this is where some alternative distribution mechanisms will actually enable the distribution in different terms. And I think in that sense, OTAs, they'll need to reinvent a little bit what they do in terms of segmenting a little bit better and providing more personalized value, if you like, to consumers. Dorian?
Well, the discussion started with the division between who owns the guest, whether it's the OTA or the hotel. And my feeling is neither, and it shouldn't be either. We're both serving the guests at different parts of their travel story. And what's really nice about meeting with the rival OTAs and hotel chains is there isn't actually really any antipathy between us. Destructive element has come into the industry and has been allowed to grow, but I do believe that we all are here for the same purpose. And I would, just like to finish on a positive note and hope that everyone picks up on the various ideas that have been bandied around this afternoon.
Cool. Richard?
Well, I'd just like to, on behalf of the whole panel, to say thank you very much to everybody in the audience, and on behalf of Dimitrios and I, to say thank you so much to the panel. I thought it was really involved, very instructional, I must say. I learnt an enormous amount from all of you, so thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panelists.